Hi, everyone. I hope everybody can see me and hear me. Hopefully, right? Maybe thumbs up.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So it's a pleasure, a real pleasure to be here. I'm super excited to be the facilitator for this session. And I'm pretty sure we can't wait to hear our speakers and talk about the following topic that it's going to be Coil. So I want to briefly just give you an outline, an overview of what we are going to be seeing during this session before I introduce our wonderful speakers. So first of all, just a brief overview. I'm going to be giving a brief overview of what the topic is going to be. And from there, we are going to be passing on to the presentations, where each one of our panelists will have 10 minutes for their presentations. And we will also be having the students of some of our panelists in this case, and they will be having 2 minutes to present their experience regarding Coil. Right after that, our last section for this session will be the Q&A, which will be questions and answers. And just as Maria just mentioned, this you will be able to do it through the Q&A, and we will be receiving your questions towards the end. So that's a little bit of what we are going to be doing today. Let me just stop sharing this. And once more, just as I was saying, we are super excited to be here. Our moderator is going to be Paulina Covarrubias, which I know she's here, and she will be keeping us posted on your questions. As we said, those questions will be done through the Q&A, and we will leave it towards the end of our session. So let's start this session. Super excited. My name is Liliana Vizcarra, and I work at San Diego State University Imperial Valley campus. I'm super excited, and I know I'm not saying this only for me, for myself, but on behalf of my wonderful speakers and the students who will be today presenting. Before I turn it over to them and introduce each of them, I would like to share a little bit of what today's session is going to be about. Certainly, every health and mental issue interfere in one way or another on every aspect of our lives. Stress, anxiety, and other exterior factors affect the well-being and life of an individual. We all have firsthand experience with the pandemic, where most of us teachers would gather around through platforms like Zoom and share our personal struggles due to the battles both us and our students were facing. We would take these opportunities to vent and discuss the issues we were seeing in our classrooms, where the progress of our students was being targeted and eclipsed by the affective elements. So in regards to education, we all tried new ways, right? We were sort of forced to pursue our inner creativity, and we started searching for ways to continue teaching and face the academic and affective challenges in front of us. So virtual classrooms became popular. All of a sudden, both teachers and students from all educational levels had to learn and develop digital literacy skills. We had to learn how to work in virtual teams. In very little time, we had to learn how to teach and learn in a virtual environment. So Zoom, Google Classroom, WhatsApp, among other apps, became super popular. Teachers and students' conversations started changing. Our homes all of a sudden became some sort of classroom. Personally, I love the debates over having our students turn the cameras on or not. It felt like the discussions and arguments became a daily need to help us justify or modify what we were doing in the classroom. Meetings involving teachers and students on both sides of the border showed evidence of the similarities, differences, but mostly challenges that we were all facing. In one way or another, we were all collaborating by sharing ideas and solutions on different issues. We were sharing core syllabus and searching for ways to connect, ways that would also virtually expose our students to multicultural experiences. So I'm guessing that this type of connections and exchanges could fall under Coil, or are they just a small aspect of what Coil is? Just by looking up the acronym on the internet, it says that COIL stands for Collaborative Online International Learning. So a quick interpretation is that it involves collaboration, it's online, and involves faculty and students. But does it involve both teachers or only one? Are the classes based on one syllabus only? Do both teachers design the curriculum of the class? Is it only in one language or in both? As faculty, how do I start it? Do all institutions have the resources to start a COIL program? And because I know we have such a great audience before us today, I'd like your help with something, please. I want to pose a question and collect all your answers using the following QR that I'll be showing to you right now, where the question is the following. Just give me 1 second. Just by taking a picture of the QR, you will be answering the following questions. That's where I would need your answer and your help with. Do you consider yourself a person who knows everything that COIL entails? So just take a brief picture of the QR with your phone, and you may answer with a thumbs up that it would be yes, and a thumbs down that would be no. I appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much. Now, if we have time, we will come back to see the results of this small survey. Thank you very much. And now it is my pleasure to invite you all to hear our 4 panelists who bring to this conversation their experience working with COIL. Their valuable experience will allow us to know more about the challenges they faced, the startup plan, its benefits, strategies to find an institution who is also interested in collaborating. To make this conversation even more enriching, we also have 6 students who have taken classes through COIL, and they too will be sharing their experience from their perspective. So to start this session, we have Dr. Joybel Jimenez with the topic of benefits of the COIL program and foreign language proficiency. Dr. Joybel Jimenez holds a bachelor's degree in language teaching, a master's degree in EFL, and doctorate in education. In her homeland, Venezuela, she worked as a tenured professor at Universidad Centro Occidental Lisandro Alvarado, where she was member of the editorial committee of 2 scientific journals. 2 years ago, she immigrated to Tijuana, Mexico, to work as a lecturer professor at Universidad Autónoma de Baja California. She's part of the staff of the language school, and she teaches in the fields of teaching practice and language skills practice. She regularly invites foreign teachers to provide students with multicultural learning teaching experiences and learning insights. As the coordinator of the social professional service in the same school, she has developed and coordinated programs to teach English as a foreign language among neglected communities. I will now turn it over to Dr. Joybel Jimenez.
Thank you, Liliana, for your nice presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to all the organizing committee of reporters, as well as the participants here in this session. Well, when I got an email from the university where I work, as Liliana mentioned before, Universidad Autónoma de Baja California, required me that I had to develop a COIL program for being a full-time professor. The first idea that came to my mind was, oh, no more work. And definitely, I am almost sure that that is a constant feeling every teacher experiences immediately after we hear about a new methodology or policy that we have to follow. So using my own experience, I decided to conduct this presentation along the path of deconstruct the myth of every new methodology equal to more effort and highlight the benefits of COIL for us, for teachers. Okay, and as Liliana mentioned at the beginning, at the end of all the presentation, you are going to have the experience of our students. Okay, so Liliana, let me see. Okay, first I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of COIL for us as professionals. And I did like this acronym of LDC, that stands for learn, discuss, and collaborate. For learn, during our peer work, and this is something that I have been experiencing, and if you have the opportunity to work with Coil, you are going to experience the same. Teachers are able to learn from peers, contents, language, or culture. Every time we are exposed to new contents, we learn intrinsically, so that is natural. So we go through sometimes unconscious learning process, and our cultural level increases and our cultural understanding improve, which is something very crucial in Coil, the cultural understanding. And our mastering of a foreign language is also improved. For us in the Universidad Autónoma de Baja California, is mandatory that we have to start a Coil program with English-speaking institutions. The other aspect that is discussed, having a regular interaction, teachers discuss several topics that lead them to a deeper knowledge, generate new insights, and promote dialectical interaction. So our frequent and direct contact with our peers positively influences our insights. And finally, collaborate. You are not alone with the task. I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, we may think that that is a lot of work, but we are not going to do it alone. The Coil methodology states that you have to work in collaboration with your peer along the whole project, and not only at the beginning or at a specific step. You are not alone when planning the activities, which is absolutely great. You share ideas, thoughts, and the best part, you share your efforts. See, then we have the other fact that I mentioned, and I have mentioned already several times, that is the time consuming. Not at all. What benefits we have dealing with time? We professors usually have many activities to do. I know that, right? We have to teach, we have to research, we have to manage some administrative tasks, and this might make us feel like overworked. But with the Coil methodology, the activities are not as time consuming as other pedagogical tasks. We really need to devote time during two critical or crucial periods, the preparation and the development. During the preparation, which is at the beginning of the project, the preparation is so crucial, so the time should be managed efficiently. We have to meet with our peer, of course, and we have to organize all our plan and all the activities we are planning to do. And then after we set the groups and we give the right orientations to our students, the Coil program will flow efficiently. And we are going to just need to monitor and evaluate during the process. The interdisciplinary work. The interdisciplinary work provides benefits for both teachers as well as for students. For teachers and students, well, the interdisciplinary work provides new insights. Okay, remember that we are not tied to work with another professor that belongs to our same field of research or expertise. Okay, in my situation, me as a language teacher, I worked with a marketing teacher. Okay, that marketing teacher works for the Brigham Young University, and our students work together developing a marketing program. So the language students help the marketing students. So with this opportunity, each area of knowledge required certain specific skills, of course, in development. And the multidisciplinary work made us to develop new insights. With this, the Bloom Digital Taxonomy and SAMR model provide the guidelines to organize the work and get those new insights. Of course, I don't think we need to go too deeper with the aspects of the new knowledge and new vocabulary, because that is something self-explanatory. We are working with new content, then we are able to get new knowledge and consequently new vocabulary. For us, another benefit for us, for teachers, the possibilities to have a wider field of research. Sometimes we professors as researchers may seem to be like working in a circle that all usually recycling the same material. But when we are starting interdisciplinary work, we have a new way or a new path to follow, a new path to walk through, which I consider really interesting. And for students, this increased motivation due to the exposure of a novelty. You have no idea how refreshing could be for your group to start working with a completely new subject and with new people, with new like classmates. The benefits as academics. Okay, this is very, I think, amusing for us, which is the knowledge acquisition. As researchers and professors, we have to be updated, improve our cultural background, learn new topics day by day, and Coil programs are the ideal scenario for those projects and those processes. Then we have the enrichment of curriculum and programs. The enrichment of curriculum and programs, according to Misra, he says that those curriculum and programs can be improved, sharing the academic environment of each peer. Positive aspects of the other could be proposed to be used in our institution. We know, of course, that every institution has some policies, and the Coil programs improves those institutional policies and also give us a new way to continue our academic practices. Fourth, and finally, to fulfill the educational mission of the institutions. Sometimes we face a giant elephant in our institutions, and that elephant is the theme of the public policies. We know that every institution has some rules and we have to follow them. And the Coil programs provide to those institutions, again, as I mentioned before with the student, is a very good opportunity to refresh those policies and to try to make in the right way important changes in our institutions, okay? So I am going to conclude this presentation with my personal experience and opinion about the Coil program. As I mentioned at the beginning, maybe I thought that it would be a lot of work, this Coil program, but fortunately, I concluded that it is not. It has been a really good opportunity for me and for my students to meet other professors, to meet other students, and to share very important cultural elements, and also the huge opportunities the students have to share and to improve their knowledge and also their language skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joybel. And just as you said, from the perspective myself as a language teacher, and how you can see that through Coil programs, the linguistic part, also improves a lot, with our students. And in both sides of the border, from Spanish and English. So that's very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Joybel. Wonderful presentation. And I'm pretty sure there will be a few questions towards the end of our session.
Thank you, Liliana.
Thank you, Dr. Joybel. Next is Dr. Fabiola Flores with the topic of the challenges of implementing a Coil program. Dr. Fabiola Flores Monsiváis is a physician specialized in internal medicine with training from Hospital General del Estado de Sonora by the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México and certified by the Mexican Board of Internal Medicine. Culinary medicine pioneer in Mexico. She certified by she's a lifestyle medicine diplomat certified by the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine and a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine as well. 2018, she and her team started teaching a culinary medicine course at the School of Health Sciences of Universidad Autónoma de Baja California in Ensenada. They teach medical and nursing students how to cook healthy and delicious dishes and follow and prescribe the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, including food, exercise, sleep, health, healthy social connections, stress management techniques, and to limit substance abuse. She has participated in 2 Coil courses. She is currently Extension and Liaison Coordinator at the university. Their teaching kitchen is on the Teaching Kitchen Collaborative Food is Medicine map, the first in Mexico and Latin America. You can find, just as with Dr. Joybel, you can find more information about the work of Dr. Fabiola in her bio, and you can find this information on the Reborder website. Just a very quick announcement, when we're getting close to the 10 minutes, Dr. Fabiola, I'll just maybe say 2 more minutes or 1 more minute, around there. Thank you so much. I will turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Liliana. Buenas tardes. Gracias a Liliana por la presentación y gracias a los organizadores de esta gran conferencia por la invitación. Yo les hablaré de algunos retos de la puesta en marcha de un programa Coil. Llevar a cabo un proyecto Coil es una forma innovadora de comprometerse en un diálogo sobre desafíos globales. Constituye en sí un reto, barreras que debes romper para lograr el éxito, pero una tarea estimulante al fin y al cabo. Estos desafíos los podemos visualizar en los objetivos y la estructura de un proyecto Coil. La finalidad de Coil es promover oportunidades internacionales de aprendizaje para los estudiantes. Primero, tomar la decisión de realizar un proyecto Coil implica mayores compromisos, responsabilidades y carga de trabajo. Después, encontrar un socio compatible en el área del conocimiento y el tópico de la materia. Hay una gran diversidad de instituciones que les pueden ayudar a encontrar un compañero. En nuestro caso, UABC me puso en contacto con AMPEI, con la Asociación Mexicana para la Educación Internacional, quien trabaja con la Embajada de Estados Unidos de Norteamérica, y a través de su programa de internacionalización curricular, ellos me ayudaron a encontrar a mi socia, la doctora Kimberly Warren, en Morgan State University. En el codiseño del trabajo, ambos socios deberán diseñar objetivos de aprendizaje, evaluaciones y el diseño de actividades, incluyendo las colaborativas. En el área de la tecnología, algunas de las barreras están relacionadas a 3 factores principalmente. Barreras en el acceso a la información, la limitada funcionalidad de la tecnología disponible y la inercia organizacional. Las actividades colaborativas deben fomentar el desarrollo comunitario, deben permitir al estudiante aprender de sus compañeros, pero también sobre ellos. Se puede lograr colaboración sin comunidad, sí, pero no una comunidad sin colaboración. Descubrir cómo incorporar los elementos de una comunidad en un ambiente virtual es desafiante. El enfoque no debe ser en la tecnología, sino en la colaboración que se debe alojar en el uso de la tecnología. Se pueden utilizar la integración de videos en tecnologías como Flipgrid, que fue la que nosotros utilizamos para el rompehielo, por ejemplo. Ocasionalmente durante las videoconferencias los estudiantes no querían abrir sus cámaras. Eso fue un desafío. Y aquí los fondos virtuales de Zoom y sus filtros fueron de gran utilidad para hacer la experiencia más cómoda, privada y divertida. Definitivamente, la interconectividad del Internet fue uno de los mayores desafíos. La pandemia fue un verdadero reto. Sin embargo, brindó una oportunidad invaluable de discutir en tiempo real el impacto de COVID-19 en diferentes partes del mundo. Nuestro Coil surge de la clase Psicología de la Salud en Morgan State University y de la Clínica de Estilo de Vida de la Escuela de Ciencias de la Salud de UABC en Ensenada. Y uno de los objetivos era discutir los estilos de vida y el estado de la salud de las personas en ambos países. En Padlet creamos una oportunidad para mejorar las habilidades colaborativas. Compartimos recursos acerca del estilo de vida, la alimentación, por ejemplo, el plato del buen comer en caso de los mexicanos y la dieta estándar americana en Estados Unidos. Discutimos sobre enfermedades mentales, el estrés causante y las principales causas de muerte de mexicanos y estadounidenses, que de hecho constituyen las mismas causas: enfermedad cardiovascular, diabetes, cáncer, entre las tres primeras. Otras barreras incluyen el idioma, y aunque el objetivo es mejorar las habilidades en el idioma inglés, algunas veces los niveles de competencia de los estudiantes en el idioma varían. La diferencia de horarios es un factor imprescindible a considerar. Y dentro de la inercia organizacional, los horarios universitarios deben ser alineados. Los requerimientos, evaluaciones de los cursos pueden variar entre ambas instituciones. Coil ayudó a conocer mejor algunas culturas, rutinas e incluso a romper estereotipos. Esta imagen proviene de la adaptación de una fábula hindú que habla de 6 personas ciegas que se encuentran un elefante por primera vez en su vida e intentan conceptualizarlo tocándolo. Sin embargo, cada uno de ellos siente una parte diferente del elefante, lo que los lleva a desacuerdos acerca de lo que es un elefante. Los humanos tendemos a tomar nuestras experiencias parciales como una verdad total y nuestras perspectivas individuales como la única versión de la realidad. Sin embargo, nuestras percepciones pueden ser muy limitadas. Debemos tomar en cuenta que pueden tener solo una parte de la razón porque solo tenemos información parcial. Imaginen qué pasaría si reemplazamos a estos 6 individuos por estudiantes de diferentes disciplinas. Por ejemplo, en nuestro caso, fisiología, psicología y medicina, pero además derecho, economía, geografía, química. Y en lugar de preguntarles sobre la identidad del elefante, les pedimos que identifiquen los mayores problemas de salud del mundo y les pedimos soluciones individuales a estos problemas. Lo más probable es que recibamos 6 respuestas completamente diferentes. La pregunta es, ¿son estas respuestas enfoques diferentes, pero adecuados para la solución? ¿O solo se puede lograr una respuesta completa de los estudiantes si ellos combinan sus áreas de especialización y encuentran juntos una solución interdisciplinaria? Estas visiones se pueden entender por el modelo de la cultura del iceberg, el cual se centra en los elementos que componen la cultura y en el hecho de que algunos de estos elementos son visibles, mientras otros son difíciles de descubrir. En este iceberg solo se puede ver una porción muy pequeña por encima de la superficie. Esta parte superior está sostenida por la más voluminosa del iceberg, que está debajo de la superficie y por lo tanto es invisible. No obstante, esta parte inferior es la base que lo sostiene todo. Y también en la cultura hay algunas partes visibles: la arquitectura, el arte, la cocina, la música, el lenguaje. Pero los poderosos fundamentos de la cultura son más difíciles de detectar. La historia alrededor de su cultura, sus normas, sus valores. Así, las partes visibles de la cultura son solo expresiones de sus partes invisibles. Reflejan lo difícil que es entender a personas con diferentes antecedentes culturales, porque podemos detectar las partes visibles de su iceberg, pero no podemos ver de inmediato cuáles son sus cimientos. Es decir, obtenemos percepciones de la cultura de otros a través de lo que vemos por los lentes de nuestro propio iceberg. En este Coil, los estudiantes discutieron en grupos las barreras observadas en su comunidad para tener un estilo de vida saludable, entre ellos espacios seguros donde ejercitarse, acceso limitado a frutas y verduras, inseguridad alimentaria, abundancia de productos ultraprocesados. Hicieron una lista y se dieron cuenta que muchas de estas barreras se interponían en ambos países. Hicimos una revisión sobre el estrés y los efectos que tiene sobre el cuerpo, especialmente con COVID-19, así como estrategias para manejarlo, como el uso de aplicaciones para meditar descargables en el teléfono. Para finalizar la colaboración Coil, los estudiantes diseñaron su reto de salud 2 semanas. Debían encontrar áreas de oportunidad de mejora en su estilo de vida, establecer objetivos, aplicarlos en sus vidas durante 2 semanas y presentar sus resultados. Realizaron una presentación sobre su motivación personal para mejorar uno de los 6 pilares de la medicina de estilo de vida o más: alimentación saludable, actividad física, manejo del estrés, un sueño adecuado, relaciones sociales saludables y limitación de uso de tabaco. Hablaron de las barreras que encontraron y las estrategias que utilizaron para vencerlas. Compartieron sus resultados. Incluso algunos de los alumnos mencionaron, una que tenía lupus, mencionó que mejoró su dolor cuando incluyeron más frutas y verduras en su alimentación, cambiaron su horario para ejercitarse más y dormir mejor. Un área que nos preocupaba era la coherencia. Hablábamos de mejorar la salud comiendo saludable, aumentando la actividad física y sugiriendo técnicas de manejo de estrés. Así que no podíamos estar sentadas en clase y nos pusimos a cocinar recetas saludables, bajas en grasas saturadas, sodio, ricas en frutas y verduras, y nos subimos a la banda a caminar durante las actividades sincrónicas. Para finalizar, quisiera compartirles un video que dura 50 segundos sobre nuestro proyecto Coil. Muchas gracias. Les dejo mi correo electrónico, redes sociales y mi página de internet. Estoy a sus órdenes.
Muchísimas gracias, doctora Monsiváis. Súper interesante. Ahorita tomaba nota sobre la analogía que utilizaba sobre la competencia intercultural, de la interculturalidad. Me pareció súper importante y súper interesante. Y lo que decía también sobre en un programa Coil no tiene que ser el mayor enfoque en la tecnología, sino en esa colaboración que se va a dar entre los alumnos y entre los maestros, ¿no? Entonces, qué interesante y qué importante tomar todo eso en consideración cuando estamos pensando en colaborar con alguien más en un programa Coil. Muchísimas gracias, doctora Monsiváis.
Gracias a ti, Liliana.
Next is Dr. Juliana Alonso with the topic of cultural and knowledge exchange through Coil. Dr. Juliana Alonso is an assistant professor in teacher education at San Diego State University, Imperial Valley campus. As an interdisciplinary scholar, her research agenda centers local Chicano-Chicana community histories of education, specializing in the nexus between juvenile delinquency, discourse, and educational policy and practice in the first half of the 20th century. In addition, her work in the US-Mexico borderlands as a teacher educator is currently seeking to develop critical approaches to fronterizo teacher preparation. I will turn it over to you, Dr. Alonso.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you everyone for being here and joining us in this wonderful panel today. So I will go ahead and share my screen. There we go, right? Can you all see the presentation? Perfect. So thank you everyone. So as Liliana mentioned, today I will be sharing my experience engaging pre-service teachers across the US-Mexico border and really focusing on this intercambio de conocimientos, this exchange of knowledges among our pre-service teachers. My name is Dr. Alonso. I work primarily out of the Imperial Valley campus. And so the students that I work with are students from El Valle Imperial. And so part of the collaboration that I've engaged with, let's see, oops, sorry, I can't seem to move my screen. Let's see. Liliana, would you be able to share my PowerPoint since I'm having issues? Oh, there we go. There we go.
There
It
we
is.
go. Okay, perfect. Let me know.
Perfect. Okay, so as I mentioned before, my work is completely with SDSU Imperial Valley students, working specifically with the teacher preparation program. And so the Coil that I, along with my colleague from Escuela Normal Fronteriza Tijuana, we decided to collaborate and really think about how do we create a Coil for pre-service teachers, for fronterizo pre-service teachers across, or the urban context in Tijuana and across the rural context of Imperial Valley. And so our Coil consisted of 15 SDSU Imperial Valley students and 15 students from the Escuela Normal Fronteriza Tijuana. And we met for 8 weeks. And in that 8-week course, there were a lot of different exchanges, a lot of different points of discussion, but the two that I will be focusing on today are the exchanges of conocimiento around the educational system and the cultural knowledges. And so for the first one, these understanding the systems of education across the US and Mexico context was important for us to really get a sense of our teachers, to know the counterpart, right? For Imperial Valley pre-service teachers to know, what the educational system looks like in Mexico. For a lot of our Imperial Valley students, they were surprised that the educational system in Mexico is completely centralized. For our Mexican counterparts, they were surprised as well that our standards in the US, our educational standards are vary across state by state. And so for us, it was important for them to understand what our systems look like, because we share students. At some point, they will be teaching students that are recently arrived from Mexico, and to understand what that system looks like and how to best support them. And for our Tijuana counterparts, especially with deportations and those issues, they're also dealing with students who their family have been deported, and they're working with students who find themselves not knowing the language and kind of facing cultural and linguistic kind of barriers. And so this is one of the conocimientos that I think was largely salient and impactful for our students in this Coil, because we're so close to the border, and they share family, they go to Mexico and they come to the US often, but they realize after this Coil that it's like, I didn't know this stuff about, I had no idea about the context of education being so different, so vastly different. And so this was an important component, especially as we're training pre-service teachers, which will become teachers in these borderland areas. The second piece is a much more culturally kind of focused piece on knowledge. And so the second piece focuses on the student conocimientos around culture and identity. Part of our Coil really asked our students to engage in reflection through testimonials and through really honoring their lived experiences as important. And so we created an assignment where our pre-service teachers had to engage in testimonial through a visual modality and through writing. So they had to write it and then kind of visually put it together. And so this is the visual testimonial of one of our SDSU students, our pre-service teacher, depicting her first day of class, coming from Mexicali and entering a classroom in the Imperial Valley in middle school. For her, it was a challenge that was not only a cultural challenge, but also linguistically. So here you see her being depicted. It's a self-portrait, and you see the English words coming in from one end of her ear and just question marks. The background also reflects the Mexican and the US flags being heavily pixelated. And in her written testimonial, she talks about what this all means. She writes, "The reason I chose to illustrate this moment is because language was one of the first factors that had affected my identity and made me feel isolated all those years ago. However, it was not just language, but it was also culture, as shown by the two glitching flags merging together in the background. My identity felt unstable and unclear." And so for us, it was important for these cultural and linguistic kind of knowledges and experiences to be shared across, our class, so our students can have a much better understanding of how education is experienced at each side of the border. For this student, it was a student that came from Mexicali into the Imperial Valley schools. For our Tijuana counterparts, they also had to create the same assignment. And so this is what you're seeing is, in this case, it's a picture of a planter and, a plant and, seeds, everything that you need to grow a beautiful garden, right? The gloves. And so when she's talking about her growth as a future, teacher and docente in Tijuana, she's talking about it as, something that needs to be tended like a garden, something that you need to nourish, something that you need to water. And she is the plant, she is this flower that will eventually bloom. But she speaks specifically to the need for understanding, cultural history, understanding ethnic studies and that history to understand where teachers fall into, this landscape. She writes, "Conocer la historia de la educación a nivel cultural es algo impactante y alentador, que a pesar de las emociones negativas que pueden manifestarse al momento a causa de las injusticias y la inequidad, pueden transformarse en algo bueno. Esa será nuestra decisión. Es así que mi decisión es tomar acción a través de mi enseñanza." And so this becomes also a call for future teachers to really take action in their praxis. So what do you do after learning from this important history? Well, and for her, it's about her service in the teaching field. And so as I conclude, Coil, I think, is an important piece to the learning that happens, and the possibilities. And it moves us closer, at least in this particular project, to validate the conocimientos of fronterizo pre-service teachers and beyond. And so it's an important pedagogical tool to really enrich the classroom. Thank you all so much, and I'll pass it over to Liliana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alonso. And how interesting to see the perspective of both sides of the border with the students on the art, right? On what they painted, what they drew. And just because yesterday I had the opportunity to see the event where they gave you that award, and I saw many of the testimonials that you showed, and you can see that difference in the perspective of the students on both sides. Super, super interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Alonso. And next is Dr. Zohir Chowdhury with the topic of addressing climate change, an example from a Coil course. Dr. Zohir is an associate professor in the Division of Environmental Health in the School of Public Health at San Diego State University. Prior to joining SDSU, Dr. Zohir completed his PhD in atmospheric chemistry and environmental engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology, and was a postdoctoral researcher and a lecturer in the School of Public Health at the University of California, Berkeley. Dr. Zohir research interests are in air pollution, focusing on particulate matter, both in urban and rural regions, as well as in indoor and in outdoor environments. In addition, his research also focuses on assessing city level and organizational level climate action plans. I will now turn it over to Dr. Zohir.
Thank you, Liliana. So today I will be discussing about my experience as a professor in working with Coil. I piloted Coil last semester for the first time during the pandemic, and then I continued on doing Coil in my graduate class this semester as well. And now I will be talking about my experience and how I put together this Coil class this semester with students coming face-to-face back on campus. So I partnered for my Coil class with India, and the university in India that I partnered with was XIM University. The two courses that we selected at SDSU, my course was PH 700D, which is a graduate level class in public health, focusing on climate change. I had 11 students enrolled on campus. And at XIM University in India, the course that I partnered with was Human and Sustainable Development, which is again another graduate level class in their School of Sustainability, and 19 students were enrolled. All of the 19 students were actually virtual this specific semester because during that time, India was undergoing their largest peak of the pandemic and was slowly subsiding. So they were off campus totally, and we were on campus. At SDSU, beside myself, Tiffany Chin, she's a student in public health, was my TA and assisted me with some of the logistical issues in implementing Coil from our side. And from India's side, my collaborator, which I do a lot of research with, her name is Dr. Elizabeth Abba, and her 3 students helped her to facilitate Coil from her end. So that was our Coil team as we started planning. We did start planning Coil about 4 months before the semester began for me and 3 months before the semester began for her. They are in a term system, so their semester begins a lot earlier, typically end of July, beginning of August, and our semester begins end of August. So there was 1 month early start for their semester, and then they end by beginning of October, second week of October, they end the second week of October, and ours end in December. So there was a little bit of overlap that we could utilize for a Coil class, which was about a month, about 5 weeks. So we decided that we wanted to choose a topic that had global relevance, where both students, public health, mostly environmental health from our institution, and then sustainability students for her institution would be able to connect. So we decided to choose United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is the SDG, and there are 17 SDG that under the United Nations that all countries around the globe, they're trying to meet by 2030. Among the 17 goals, goal number 13 focuses on climate action. Goal number 17 focuses on partnership for achieving those goals. And we thought that by connecting both classes with these 2 specific goals would be a good idea for the joint Coil collaborative class. So Sustainable Development Goal 13 states, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. It does have additional language that I'm not including in here with indicators and how to achieve that. And goal number 17 focuses on strengthening the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. In order to achieve this specific goal, we did have a class project that was focusing on both aspects, mostly focusing on addressing climate change. And the class was divided into 4 groups, And the 4 groups, we already knew that we wanted 4 groups because we already knew how many students were enrolled. However, as I mentioned earlier, SDSU had 11 students in my class, and my partner class has 19 students. So there was a little bit of a discrepancy with respect to matching proper enrollment. But we had 4 groups, and as you can see in here, 2 students from our university, 5 from India for group number 1, 3 from SDSU, 5 from India, group number 2, and then 3 from our university and 5 from India for group number 3, and then group number 4 you can see in here. So there was a little bit of mismatch in the earlier groups, and at the last group there was a little bit more balance with respect to group member. The topic totally connected with SDG 13 and the indicator. So group number 1 chose to focus on climate-related natural disasters and focusing on both US and India. And group number 2 focused on climate finance. In this case, US was a contributor to funds globally, and in this case the group decided to choose Bangladesh, which was in this case a receiver of climate financing fund for climate adaptation in Bangladesh. In this case, India was not chosen because India specifically, even though it does receive climate finance, it did not qualify with respect to some of the indicator under the SDG 13. So India was not able to be chosen, and they chose a nearby country, which was Bangladesh. Group number 3 focused on climate policy, both in US and India. And finally, group number 4 focused on climate education, both in US and India. With respect to project deliverables, both India and US, they had specific deliverables. And we had 3 group goals that connected with our class learning objectives as well. So briefly, goal number 1 for this project was to really enhance intercultural understanding between Indian students and US students with respect to how we work together and how we interact and how we think about these global problems that are affecting both countries in different ways. And this specific aspect of intercollaboration, exchange of ideas, also connected with building partnership, which connected with the Sustainable Development Goal 17. The next 2 goals are a little bit more academic in nature. Goal number 2 was mostly making sure that students that were doing this project, they were looking at quality research by looking at quality databases, making sure they're making reference to peer-reviewed literature, as well as specific reports from international agencies to assimilate their research work in addressing their class project. And goal number 3 for our class for the specific project was to create a culturally appropriate and audience-specific video and infographic where their class project would be one of their deliverables. So the deliverables was creating an infographic, and this was a 1-page infographic, and then create a video that pertains to their specific class project, and a testimonial. This was the group component where they'd be collaborating together during this 1 month of collaborative work. And then there was also some individual components to express their understanding. So there was a reflection assignment, some evaluation assignment, as well as just pure attendance and participation and engagement in the activities that we were putting together was also part of the grading in general. And so there was somewhat of a balance, like 65% group work and 35% was individual accomplishment in Coil.
Dr. Zohir, I'm going to interrupt really quick. 1 more minute.
Okay, so phase 1, so Coil has multiple phases in here. So a team building phase, a project guideline phase. In this case, we combined these 2 phases in 1 meeting and was the beginning of the semester. And then phase number 3 was collaborating phase, and meeting number 2 where it was a synchronous meeting for both countries where they were able to collaborate live for about 2 hours. And then phase number 4, which is the presentation, and that's the cumulative experience where they were presenting the infographic and the created video in this virtual exchange through Zoom, where both universities came together. So these 3 classes were synchronous. We were considering a 4th class, but time was of essence. We only had about 5 weeks where we could overlap, and each class had a lot of content to cover as well that was outside of the scope of Coil. So that's what the best we could do. So finally, I'm showing you in here one of the product, which is the infographic in here. And this is from one of the group. Even though it just looks like a simple infographic, but it required a lot of understanding, a lot of research to come up with this specific number that you see in here. At the same time, this number were for both United States and India, and they needed to make sure that they were comparing apples with apples. And when you're working with databases and information from 2 countries, there's a lot of discrepancy in the data. So they needed to make sure that they were comparing apples to apples before putting together this infographic in here. The video in here I'm not going to show, but I'll paste YouTube URL that you can see with respect to how they put together a video. And this video also is from group number 4, which is climate education. It briefly talks about Coil and how Coil can be utilized to address climate change and climate education. And then the group continues talking about how they applied Coil-specific skills in their project with climate education. And that's all that I have. And I'm going to paste the URL in the chat.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Zohir. And actually, your students are next, right? They will be presenting and telling us a little bit of what their experience was working with a Coil program. So next we have, thank you so much, Dr. Zohir. So in this second part of the session, we will have the opportunity to hear former or current students of our speakers. They will be sharing their experience in regards to Coil. The first group of students are Claire Norberg, Kaylin Wilson, and Peyton Wilson, and they are students of Dr. Zohir. Thank you so much. I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Our presentation is on collaborative online international learning, or COIL, as a format for discussing climate change. My name is Peyton Wilson, and I will be presenting on my COIL experience along with my classmates Claire Norberg and Kaylin Wilson. In our global climate change course, we used COIL to collaborate with students from XIM University in India to investigate climate action our countries are taking. We worked in groups made up of students from SDSU and XIM to create a video and infographic that reported our country's progress on Sustainable Development Goal number 13, which is a goal set by the United Nations to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. First, we will each talk about our individual experiences, and then we will go into some of the advantages, disadvantages, and key takeaways of the COIL process.
Good afternoon and buenas tardes. My name is Claire Norberg, and I am pursuing a master's in public health in the area of environmental health. As an undergrad, I actually traveled to India to conduct a research project on air quality. And additionally, as part of my full-time job, I have led numerous short-term undergraduate study abroad programs. So it was really interesting for me to take part in COIL with XIM University, which was a brand new way to engage in international education for me. In all, I found the COIL project rewarding, but at times challenging. I loved the cultural exchange that we managed to squeeze into a relatively short amount of time. But when it came to the task of actually completing the assignments as a team, we did face some barriers, which will be discussed in more detail later in this presentation. And I'd now like to hand it off to my classmate, Kaylin, to introduce herself and her experiences with COIL.
Hi, my name is Kaylin, and I am a master's student at SDSU studying environmental health. And in my undergraduate career, I studied biology, and I discovered my passion for the environment. Climate action is a global problem that requires global collaboration. As an undergraduate, I was fortunate enough to be able to study abroad for 1 semester in France. And I was able to take international relations classes with my French peers. My international experience gave me an appreciation for other cultures, and Coil provides an option for international collaboration without the need for travel, but it's still an enriching learning experience for all participants. And now Peyton will be sharing her experience.
Hi, this is Peyton again, and just to provide some background on me, I am also currently a master's student at SDSU studying environmental health, and this is actually the second Coil project that I've been able to do with Dr. Chaudhry. Both Coil projects I've participated in have been very exciting and educational experiences, but this semester's project definitely went a lot smoother because we were able to learn a lot from the first project. Personally, I think Coil is a great format to address climate change because it's such a global issue that it just makes sense to have international collaboration when addressing it. I know we are just students, but India and the United States are two of the largest global players who could bring about impactful climate action. So for me, this project really encapsulated the united spirit both our countries need to have in order to combat climate change on a global level. What was also cool was my group mates and I ended up having a lot of fun with our project. We, as you can see from the slide, we put the UN background on ourselves in our video and pretended like we were UN representatives and had a good laugh doing that. And generally our Zoom meetings were very active and lively. Overall, participating in this project was a surreal and fun experience. So now I will pass it back to Claire to discuss some of the advantages of Coil.
All right, so there were a number of advantages to using this format for collaboration. Most notably, Coil gives students the opportunity to learn about and engage with other cultures without having to jump through all the hoops involved in international travel. Since the program is online and all that's required is an internet connection, we were able to rely on technology such as Zoom, Google Suite, and WhatsApp to communicate and collaborate on assignments. These technologies will no doubt continue to improve over time. And for example, as we've seen today, we now have capabilities such as real-time translation and making it possible to work with students who don't necessarily speak the same language. And this technology-based learning makes Coil an accessible and affordable option for many students. And I find this especially important for students who may face barriers to international travel. In my work, I've encountered numerous students who struggle to afford the high cost of international travel. There are also students for which international travel poses problems because they may not be able to take time off of work, or they may be caring for a family member. And additionally, some students simply can't travel abroad because of their immigration or legal status. So Coil removes all of these barriers, making international learning possible for all. And finally, the format of Coil has the added benefit of having little to no negative environmental impact. While studying abroad can be an incredibly enriching experience, it does leave a large carbon footprint. And as environmental health students whose projects examined climate change, we were acutely aware of the impacts of international travel on the environment, which has led some of us to have mixed feelings about studying abroad. And providing alternatives such as Coil to students seeking an international travel experience can help us to combat climate change and meet the environmental goals and standards set by our governmental and our academic institutions. And I'll now hand it off to Kaylin again, who will discuss some of the disadvantages of this learning format.
Hi, it's Kaylin. One of the biggest disadvantages of Coil is potential time differences between participants. In our project, the students at XIM University in India were 13.5 hours ahead of us from San Diego. And so we had to plan our meetings either early in the morning or late at night. And it was hard to communicate during our school hours with the other students. To overcome this, we did thorough planning and kept an open line of communication. Coil also relies a lot on modern technology, so there are bound to be some technical difficulties. For example, during our project in October, there was a global outage of WhatsApp, which is the app that we use to communicate with the students in India. And that happened the day before our project was due, so that was an issue. And thankfully, we had our group's email, so we were able to communicate via email. And another downside of Coil is that it does require an internet connection, which is not always accessible for students in every country. Another issue is the lack of immersion that comes from only having online interactions with international students. In a typical study abroad program, you're surrounded by another country's language, arts, foods, and sites and culture, which is something you can't get from just online. And another obstacle we experienced was our cultural differences regarding schoolwork. We found that us SDSU students had different expectations than the XIM students regarding our project. And also we had different approaches for deadlines and grading. And so we were able to resolve these issues with clear communication throughout the project. And now Peyton is going to share some of the takeaways we found from Coil.
Really quick interruption. We have 1 more minute, a little bit over 1 more minute. Thank you.
This will be quick. Thank you. So yeah, just to summarize everything, we have some key takeaways. First of all, scheduling and structure are very critical. It's really helpful for us to have group work time built into our classrooms rather than every group having to schedule their own meetings. Additionally, having a backup line of communication is important, whether that's just email or WhatsApp or another international messaging app. Grading standards and expectations should be well explained and consistent between the two international groups so that any confusion is minimized. And finally, having intermediate deadlines really helps to keep everyone on track and also get feedback on their project as they work on it. Thanks everyone for listening to our Coil experience, and also a huge thank you to Dr. Chaudhary for coordinating everything. These projects take a lot of time and effort to coordinate, and it would not have been possible without Dr. Chaudhary's willingness and enthusiasm and experience. So we all really appreciated that, and I'll pass it back to you now, Liliana. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Very, very interesting. And now we have another student, and this student is Dr. Alonso's former student, Luisa Chavarria Reyes. She's pre-service teacher and teacher in our SDSU Imperial Valley Teacher Preparation Program. We turn it over to you, Luisa.
Thank you. I was part of Dr. Alonso's class, as she mentioned, and I will be talking about my experience in being part of the partnership with the Escuela Normal Fronteriza Tijuana and San Diego State University Ivy campus, which I can safely say that has made a significant impact in my life as a future educator and as a person. Through this experience, I was able to interact with students across the border who we might share a culture, but we don't have the opportunity to interact as much as we would like, especially in an educational setting. Through this experience, we were able to learn so much from each other. For instance, we introduced Chicano culture to our peers and the struggles that we face. We talked about the East LA protests, the walkouts, how difficult it was for Chicano students to have an education. Our peers from Tijuana had a broad idea, but in this class, we were able to discuss it in greater detail. In my case, I was also able to gain a better understanding of Chicano culture, which led me to my own identity, to have a better understanding of my own identity. We also talked about education in Mexico. In that regard, it was our turn to learn from our peers and further understand the social and political aspects that affect the education system in Mexico. We learned that we both face similar challenges that affect students when trying to access quality and equitable education. It was surprising to learn about education in Mexico, since we grew up here in the U.S. Even though we're Mexican, we still had we didn't have like a good idea of the system in Mexico, and all of these factors helped us want to become better educators for our future students. Through this course, we always had the opportunity to openly discuss topics that were not commonly discussed in a regular class. For example, we were assigned a peer who we would write letters to. In my case, I was assigned a normalista, a student from Tijuana, since I'm an SDSU student. And we would write letters to each other and discuss about the topics assigned for the week. We would ask each other questions at the end of the letter and we will always try to answer as earnestly as possible, many times including our own philosophies and beliefs. I believe that what made this collaboration so effective was the honesty and the eagerness to learn from each other. In my opinion, I believe that these type of collaborations can be very effective because you can learn directly from your peers who can teach you about their culture themselves, and what better way than to learn from the source. I would personally like to take part in another collaboration or recommend anyone who is debating to do so, since it was such a fun and unique experience. This class was very different than other classes that I've taken before, and I say that in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Lisa. And I think that that's a very good advice and suggestions for those students, right? That they are planning to be part of a Coil project or program. Thank you so much, Lisa. Next, we have students from Dr. Joybel Jimenez. And this is Luis Chavez and Sara Estrella. And I think that we are going to be playing a couple of videos or just one video, but Paulina, you can tell me, or moderator, you can let me know.
I believe it's only the video for Dr. Joybel. I can go ahead and pull it up if you would like.
Sure. So Dr. Joybel will be playing one of the videos then. Another idea, Paulina, maybe if Dr. Fabiola Monsivais, maybe she already has, I know she also has a student of a couple of videos from her students. It's Nayeli Marquez Ramirez and Maria Cristina Beltran Vidrios. Maybe she can be next, and at the end we can have Dr. Joybel. Oh, okay. So we have Dr. Joybel now with a video. Perfect.
I can share the video instead since the sound is not working.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Being an online student has been a great experience for me. In the beginning, it wasn't easy. I was struggling to read, to listen, and to understand what I was studying. But I saw my other companions. They also were struggling like me. But they kept trying and doing their best. So I decided to do the same. I keep practicing, learning, studying every day, and now I can speak better, I can read better, and I can listen better than before. I'm not perfect, but I know if I keep trying every day to improve my English, I can do it. I know if you do your best, you can improve your English. Even if you are studying in another language, in this case in English, you can do it. Just keep trying. Ask for help for your companions, and you will see miracles in your life. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Sara Estrella. I want to share my experience with studying with people from other countries and with international professors. It was really interesting. I was able to learn not only English, but also about the cultures, about my peers. It was a really interesting experience. I learned a lot. It was hard at first because I didn't have any experience about the international way of study. But after a few months, with the help of my teachers and with my classmates, I was able to adapt and to do all my assignments the way I was supposed to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Joybel. Thank you for both of your students for sending their videos. Thank you so much. Very interesting. And now we have the last video, which is from Dr. Monsivais students. And this is Nayeli Marquez and Maria Cristina Beltran, both from the School of Medicine.
Thank you, Liliana. Well, my students are here in case you have questions. I will play the video.
Hello, my name is Patricia Tovar from Baja California University. I was in the previous Coil course and was a great way to learn about lifestyle from another university student and share my food and my culture with them. So thank you very much to everyone who was involved in this project.
The past semester, I had the opportunity to participate in Coil program Lifestyle Across Border in association with Morgan State University, where we learn how lifestyle could influence in a good or in a bad way in our life and in our health, which is a very important thing for me as a future physician because it's an aspect that I have to take into account in the treatment and the control of my patients and moreover avoiding sickness. And personally, I think this was a very rich experience because we work together with students of another country who speak a different language, alive in a different context, and that allows us to give different opinions, ideas, and thoughts, and that was an opportunity to learn from each other.
Being healthy is not only not having a sickness, there's very little information about how important it is, balance of healthy eating, workout, healthy habits, collaborative activity where we cook during a Zoom call. Dr. Jorge Castillo guided the activity. The students from Morgan State and ourselves were cooking at the same time and the same things, which was very fun and very engaging. We worked in teams to talk about the differences in our lifestyle. I found particularly brilliant of the team was to make us do a 2-week challenge. I chose to work out and to cook healthy with a schedule. If this kind of projects is still happening with young adults like us preparing to be professionals in the future, we can have solutions to work with people in other places. Some of the problems in the States are very similar to the ones that are here in our community. Coil has demonstrated that it helps with the internationalization. It has helped me broaden my spectrum of opportunities and solutions for my community, my country, or other countries.
Thank you so very much for Dr. Monsivais' students. And now we still have a few minutes for any questions that there may be for our speakers or for our students, because I know that some of the students aren't here. So Paulina, please let me know, do we have any questions from our audience?
At the moment, it seems that we don't have any questions. However, I would like to encourage you all to either leave them in the Q&A chat, or if it's a panelist, you can go ahead and ask the question as well.
Anything else that our speakers would like to share with our audience today? I think that it was super important just to listen right now to the students say how much at the end, it was an experience of knowledge, of obtaining knowledge, developing, but also developing those cultural and intercultural skills, at the end, that was it too. And also many of the students were also mentioning how at the end, you're all looking, both sides, both maybe countries, both students are looking for those solutions to global issues, right? To global problems that maybe we have. And we saw that a lot with Dr. Zohir's students' presentation, but as well as with the other presentations, I think that from a language teacher perspective, it's just so interesting to hear the students, for example, in Mexico, or the students on this side in the US say how much they have, improved their language skills. So I think that is also amazing, right? So I don't know if the speakers and students, do you have anything else to share that you would like to share with our audience?
In my case, I worked with my medical students, and it is very important in medicine to have empathy. And you're used to try to be empathic with patients or their families, but here in Coil, they learn to be empathic and understand cultures. And that was a great opportunity, because when you see patients, they're usually Mexican, and as you know their culture, you think you know the patient. And with Coil, they realized, when we talk about this iceberg culture, they knew inside Mexico, we have a lot of different languages, a lot of different cultures. And that was really helpful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fabiola. Dr. Juliana, Dr. Joybel, Dr. Zohir, or the students, any other comments that you may have?
Very quickly, Claire shared with us in the chat that she wants to thank all the faculty that were involved in coordinating this innovative and important work. And we also have a question from an anonymous attendee. It's general for everyone to feel free to answer. What more do you want out of COIL? That was their question.
One more time, Paulina. Sorry, what was the question?
What more do you want out of COIL? That was from an anonymous attendee.
What more do you want out of COIL? Okay.
Oh, I would like to every teacher in my school to do COILs. If we have more teachers doing COILs, we will have more students doing COILs. So sometimes it's difficult to do a 6-week course inside your course, and you have to not include it but put it aside. And that's what we did in the second COIL. In my first COIL, we did it inside a course. So if every teacher has the knowledge to do this, more students will be able to have the opportunity to live this experience.
Yeah, I agree with Fabiola. I think, and that is one of the reasons I mentioned that in my presentation, that as long as we continue working with COIL, the institutions could probably include as an extra course COIL project, because it's really, really important and worth to work with this in a very extensive way.
And I would also like to add that what more I would like to have from Coil. I think that I do study abroad in the same country in India, and my next target would be where students that will be doing study abroad in India, once face-to-face travel resumes, they would also participate before going to India in a Coil collaborative class with some of these Indian students, so they would know the culture, some of the way of working before heading there, because I've seen in study abroad cases that there's a initial culture shock that students end up facing, and some of that culture shock can be minimized by having COIL collaboration beforehand and knowing students and your collaborators in your host country ahead of time. So I would like to be able to do that pre-departure, some COIL session.
I'd like to add to what my peers are saying. One of the things that I would want out of COIL is to continue to demystify what COIL is. As Liliana mentioned earlier in the session, COIL is collaborative, but it's also interpretive, right? Collaborative can look different ways. And so for me, I think it's also important to demystify what COIL is, like the different pedagogical strategies that we can implement that don't have to be, in my case, I do letters, I try to incorporate art, but what else is out there that we can also implement in the COIL classroom? And so that is what for me, it's important to demystify COIL and to continue to engage pedagogically with it, and to write about it so others can also learn from what our colleagues across the country, across across the globe are doing in their own COIL courses.
Thank you so much to everybody. And just as you were saying, how important it is to have these type of conversations to learn more about COIL. We can see the word COIL, the acronym, what it means word by word, but at the end, it entails a lot. And knowing through the experience of you, the professors, faculty, and the students, it's just so important. Special thanks to all of our speakers, to their students, and to all the team behind this conference. Special thanks to Maria, Maybelline, Karina, and our moderator, Paulina. I know it's been a lot of work for all of them to put this event together. So special thanks to them and everyone at SDSU. Very special thanks to all those people who attended our session. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. See you next year so that we can continue having these valuable conversations. Thank you so much to everybody. My first time between technology and all this, so now I know what you guys go through. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank
Thank you, everybody, for attending. We will start our next session at 1:45, and we have posted the topics in the chat.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.